10th. And we're going to begin with our public hearing. Um, Mark, could you just set it up for us, please?
It's going to be the town attorney, Madam Chair.
Oh, excuse me. Yep, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The public hearing today is with regard to the proposed changes to the Town of Southington regulations, and more specifically, as it relates to the parking. As our current regulations are, there is not a section that addresses violations of the handicap parking or designated handicap parking sections. So the proposed change to that is going to allow for the Southington Police Department to actually enforce those laws as well as our local regulations. More specifically, Madam Chair, and those in attendance today, by Connecticut statute, the Town of Southington Police Department does have authority to issue a citation, but it goes to the state of Connecticut, and the violator would have to appear in court to either dispute or pay a fine for that. This allows a lot more autonomy for the Town of Southington by way of enforcement action to, when issuing the citation against the car owner, the fine that's proposed in the latter part of the regulation change would go to the Town of Southington as well. So by no means is it a money-making change, it's just a void that we're filling in to cover the Town of Southington and sort of enhance the police department's policies. I'd be remiss if I didn't comment also that at last town council meeting, I indicated my formal opinion to the members on the dais that this had been approved back in June of last year. I was mistaken in that regard. There were some other amendments that were being made, but it was not as relates to the handicap parking or the violations there too. This is a relatively new proposal, and it's open today for public hearing.
Very good. Are any of the council members have anything to say before we start the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, I would like to invite any member of the public who wishes to come and address this issue, come forward, give your name and address, and let us know if you are pro or con this change in the ordinance. Is there anyone here for that? Waiting on you. This is the last call. So I don't hear anyone coming up, and I don't see anyone starting to move to the podium. So with that, I will close the public hearing, and we will move on to our regular scheduled meeting tonight. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
William Dietzick.
Here.
Tom Lombardi.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri. Jack Perry.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo.
Here.
Victoria Triano.
And I am here. Let's stand for the prayer, the flag salute, and we're going to remain standing after the flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your direction and guidance. Keep us focused tonight on what is best for Southington and her people. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. While we're standing, I would just like to mention two individuals. Gloria Brown passed away about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and she had served in many capacities within the town. I knew her, of course, from Rotary, and she was also on our ethics board, and the town will miss her. Let's have a moment of silence for Gloria, please. Thank you. And secondly, we received word that Bruce Cotton passed away. Bruce was served the town in a variety of areas. He was a police commissioner. He was also the head of the Republican Town Committee. He and his wife Leslie were quite a team, and so our thoughts go to Leslie as we remember Bruce Cotton. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get started with our councilperson's communication. Does anyone have anything?
Minutes, Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm so sorry, minutes. May I have a motion on the minutes, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Councilperson's communication. Anybody like to share anything? Anybody? No? Everybody?
No one else has anything?
Excuse me?
No one else has anything?
No,
Oh, sure.
not yet.
Oh, thank you. So I just wanted to give a brief update on the transportation group that's been meeting, and a brief update on what's going on with public transportation. So I wanted to say thank you to the town manager and to Annette Turnquist, who happens to be here tonight, which is great. So in the governor's budget, this budget for this year, there's approximately $8.6 million in the governor's budget for some transportation items. I believe 1.2 million of that is earmarked for the New Britain Bristol transportation loop, I guess you would call it, the service area. So Annette was able to speak with a contact person at Connecticut Transit who had said that as long as the governor's budget passes in June and that money remains there, a study has already been done which shows that, some transportation into Southington, expanding on the New Britain Bristol loop would be phase one. And they would try to put in some stops. They're going to look at everything and would try to do that in phase one, over by the TJ Maxx Plaza. So it would come around TJ Maxx and then go up West Queen Street and then up to West Street and back into Bristol. So that would be phase one. And that obviously would be once the budget passes, and then they would have to assess the area, what would be needed, any improvements. And I believe Brian McLaughlin had said, like early, maybe the fall or early spring, before it might be implemented. So, that's for the transportation group that's kind of pushing the public transportation, that could be a good phase one. And then hopefully there can be transportation from there. So I guess we have to take it in steps as far as the budget being approved first.
This is the one that most councilmen remember. This is one that came to you almost 3 years ago or 4 years ago now, where we asked them, is it possible to, not abandon, but change the most southerly bus line of Bristol and bring it just into Southington? That was about 4 years ago. So this is the one I believe that maybe taking.
Right, and the study has already been done.
Mhm.
So I don't think at least another study would have to be completed. So,
Thank you, Beth. Anything else?
Can I just ask, Madam Chair, I know I checked the minutes for the Committee of the Chairs. It doesn't look like you were able to speak about the affordable housing study.
We didn't speak on that. That the Planning and Zoning Commission has done some work on that, but the chairman has chose not to bring it up, so we did not speak on it.
Okay. Is that something, though, that we can, I know we have the next couple meetings are going to be taken up with the budget, so is it something we can maybe get
Later
on our
on, maybe.
agenda in May?
Whatever we might.
Well, maybe the second meeting, first meeting in June.
Well,
At least get
Let
it
me
on
look
our-
at what's got to come out. We have to make sure that there's time for that, because that will take some time. So, but it's a possibility, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anybody else? Everybody else? I have just one thing I wanted to bring up. In Southington over this weekend, although we had a beautiful weekend for our holidays, whether it was Passover or Easter or just getting together with family, but our Southington Police Department had an extremely busy weekend. We had car break-ins, we had stolen cars, and we had drag racing, actual groups of people coming into town to drag race in different places. I just want to thank the Southington Police Department, because their diligence, they have a special task force that's set up. Their diligence has been very well received in this community and has helped us on a great deal, especially when you have a weekend like we just had. So I would just encourage all of our residents to lock their cars. This doesn't mean it's your property, you can do whatever you want, but we are targeted right now for car thieves and people who are breaking into cars. We actually had cars broken in during the day, smashed windows, that kind of thing. So in a situation like that, the police always tell us to make sure we call them, don't engage, but do everything we can to stay safe and to discourage them coming into town. And so if you can, remember to lock your cars and your doors. And I know Southington has changed over the last 20 years, but we are where we are. And I'm so grateful for our SPD because they are fighting the battle every day. And many times we don't even know about it. We don't see them doing all of this, but they are working extremely diligently. And Mark, I just want to make sure that the chief knows that we are appreciative of all of their efforts, and Deputy Chief for the whole department. So anyway, I wanted to mention that.
The chief is very familiar that I forward all that stuff to you no matter what time of day or night.
You know, it doesn't matter. We all get it, and we just, we appreciate it very much because we would not know it unless you did, Mark. And I think it's important to appreciate those servants of our community who put their life on the line all the time, whether it's fire or police, and we just appreciate them very much. So thank you, everybody. Let's move on. Item 4, report of special committees. The first one is the Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our meeting on Wednesday, April 5th, and in the same vein that which you were just speaking of, Chief Dealer reported that they've really been focusing on vehicle enforcement, speeding, erratic driving, so like we should ensure to lock our doors so people can follow the law, we should be following the law as well and make sure we're driving the speed limit and not driving erratically, because enforcement is up, and Southern Police Department does a great job of making sure that the roads in town are safe. The transfer station is going to have passes this weekend, this coming Saturday on April 15th. This will be the last time you can get the transfer station stickers at the Highway Department on Mulberry Street. I'm sorry, what did I say?
The last time.
The last time on
You can still go
Saturday,
Monday through
correct.
Friday, yeah.
That's right, you can still go Monday through Friday during normal business hours. But on Saturday, this Saturday, the 15th, you can also go to the Highway Department to get your passes. It was reported that the street scan system that the town uses to grade the paving jobs throughout town, there may have been some hiccups. So Ms. Turnquist is working with them right now, but unfortunately, we have to move forward with the 2023 schedule because it'd be very difficult to try to rearrange things now. But we're working closely with Street Scan, and in the hopes that we can rectify the situation, the problem for next year. Corporate Counsel is going to be notified by Ms. Turnquist, so I would imagine more to report on our next meeting with regards to that. J.C. Park had a new playscape installed. Ms. Turnquist reported that the J.C.'s purchased a new playscape and the Highway Parks Department recently installed it. She passed around some pictures, and I actually took a ride by. It's a great little park. So that streetscape is great for the entire town, but for the neighborhood, it's always a nice little park. Plantsville safety improvements. I guess as anticipated, the price for the project has increased. So the number, I guess, has to go back to CROG, and we're in the hopes that CROG will increase the budget to ensure that we can complete the project. So more to follow on that. I guess we're not the only ones. Many projects, the prices have been increased, so we are very hopeful that CROG will get us the funds that we need to complete the project. We had some information about the Project 131-190 for the intersection improvements of Route 10 and 322. The town council members were asked to add any additional questions that they would like the DOT answered, so we were able to send that letter out to them. So we're waiting to hear their response, so more to follow on that. The Public Works Committee decided, this has been discussion over the last couple of meetings, but the electric vehicle charging stations at the library and outside here at the municipal center are going to cease to be free beginning on June 1st. So there's plenty of time. If you're charging your vehicles, you'll be allowed to do so up until June 1st. Unfortunately, the stations that are there are older, and there isn't the right technology to transfer it over to a pay per charge situation, so they'll be shut down for free service as of June 1st. And the municipal cars that we have that are EV will still be allowed to charge, so we need to figure out a way to make that happen. But June 1st, the two stations will no longer be free. And we have a couple of items that we discussed that are up on our agenda for tonight under the town manager's report. That's the on-call sidewalk installation and the on-call construction crew. And we also discussed about the information presented to us by Ms. DiPaolo at our last meeting with regards to trash downtown on Saturdays and Sundays. So Annette is going to talk with her staff and maybe do a trash pickup on Saturday mornings, which I think would help alleviate some of the issues. So we're going to give it a shot, and hopefully that should kind of eradicate somewhat of the issue down there, but we'll see. And lastly, we had a complaint about some cracks on the trail, and the highway department knows about it, and they are looking into that and hopefully repair those cracks so no one gets hurt.
Very good.
Not sure if I missed anything, Mr. Paul. That's. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would just like to ask a question. On the electric chargers, are we going to put signage up
That's right.
relatively quickly? So that
The sign should, as soon as we get them made, we'll put them up so
Good.
folks can be forewarned that beginning June 1st, they'll no longer be available for free.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Any
you.
questions to Mike? No? Okay, let's move on. Library Building Committee. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The building committee met last Wednesday. We had received a positive site plan approval from the P and Z the day before. We discussed some workflow changes to the layout of the library, which in turn caused some changes to the drawings. We agreed as a committee that those changes were a positive for the design of the library. And the construction manager is going to get updated prints and expects to be out for bid by the end of this month or the first week in May. That's the update.
Very good. Any questions for Jim?
Madam Chair, can I, so Jim, when is the building committee meeting next? This week, or?
It'll be a week from tomorrow, or, sorry, a week from Wednesday.
So, I don't know if, I'm sure some people were aware of the I watched the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And, as far as the site plan, I know that it was approved. There was a lot of reluctancy, and there was a lot of negative comments about the appearance of the building. There were some safety concerns that were raised. The parking, again, was something, but I think, they spoke to that. So, given that much negativity, is the building committee maybe going to deal with that a little bit as far as?
Well, I can address two of the issues. So the safety issue was discussed at length.
The sidewalk?
Yes, there's no way to get a sidewalk in there due to the space in the bank.
It's narrow,
We would add a
right?
lot of costs to the construction, and in favor of square footage, we chose not to put a sidewalk back there. However, we do have sidewalks on Main Street and Marion Avenue.
Right.
So you do really technically have a sidewalk from both ends.
Right, there's just no, it looked like there's just
You
no
can't cut through the
sidewalk
back.
through the,
You'd have to go through
between
the
the two
library.
parking lots.
Yes, that's correct.
So
But we
if
have the
somebody's going
drive-through.
from,
And another thing
Right.
we discussed is we really don't know, we want people walking through there with cars coming in to drop books off.
right, so the other concern they talked about was the drive-through for the drop-off is one way. So cars coming from Meriden Avenue from that parking lot would have to come and try to turn around. So there was a long discussion about whether there's enough for a turning radius, or they start having to make some K-turns. And that was kind of causing, a bit of some angst amongst the planning and zoning members.
Well,
But
it did
again,
pass.
we have a
It
very
passed.
tight site plan.
Well, I understand it passed. There were no votes, and it was bipartisan no votes, and the chair very reluctantly voted for it. And so I guess, my point is this, that the other thing that was said in that meeting was the building will not be expanded. He made it very clear that that's the building and it's not going to be expanded.
Well, we had that discussion, we didn't design it to be expanded, that was never in the purview of the construction.
Right, but when they came and answered our questions, they gave some different suggestions about where it possibly
Right,
could be
because,
expanded.
because you.
Because we asked the question.
We as a board tasked them to tell us what could happen, so they looked at the plans and they said, this is what you could do.
You could possibly make
So
something.
it's not like there's provisions being made to bolt on an addition, that was never part of the design.
So I guess my point is this, if, people are reading articles in the paper, our Planning and Zoning Commission was clearly not happy with the way the building looks. Looks like a factory, someone said, it doesn't conform to the area. If this is going to be our building and we're trying to keep it under budget, and I understand that this is what we're trying to do, shouldn't we be really taking a hard look at this if we have a Planning and Zoning Commission, 7 members, nobody spoke in favor of the look of the building?
Well, in defense of the building committee, Val, none of those members came to any of our meetings to discuss anything about.
I know, but I can't.
Size, design, look.
I get that. I get that, but I can't, I just watched that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and like a lot of people, and I had some phone calls, that it was extremely negative. And if we're gonna do this, I'm just saying, I'm just asking, is there a way that the architects can at least just, look at this? Are there any changes that can possibly be made with what the zoning members are saying? I understand it was approved. They had to approve it.
Well,
It wasn't a special permit. It was a site plan approval,
right.
and it was approved. So I'm just asking. I'm not trying to,
Madam
cause
Chair,
major
if I may.
problem here.
Yeah.
So, why not ask the Board of Finance their opinion on the looks and the aesthetics of the building? The Planning and Zoning Commission has no purview. They have no authority over the looks and feel. So their opinion on looks and feel is the same as the Board of Finance, it's the same as yours and mine, it's the same as the Board of Education. They don't have purview. So the issue is, now, it's passed with a 5-2 vote. To change the site plan would then you go back and change the site plan.
Well, no, I'm-
We have an
I'm
approved site
asking
plan,
what
so you can't change the site.
Right, if it's still 7 people, residents in our town, looking at that and making those comments, and there are people that are leaders in our town. So
But this has
whether
been-
it's whether it's us, whether it's the Board of Finance, it doesn't matter who it is.
But this has been, this rendering has been in the public domain at multiple meetings here,
It's on
and
our
at the
website.
building committee, at the
Okay.
library, and the
So
building
I'm
for
just
9
asking,
months.
So
It's
that
been-
doesn't, so we're okay, you're okay with this? You're
the-
okay with it going forward? I guess the building committee is okay with it going forward that way, given the negative?
The building committee had a lot of input into the actual design and layout and look of the building. In fact, we discussed roof lines and arches and water flow shedding off the roof. A lot of work went into that design. And again, the architect is a renowned library design architect. And they designed that knowing that it's a gateway entry building to the town. And they wanted it to be in harmony with other buildings in the area, and I think it is. So, again, we have constraints on the look and feel of the building based on masonry versus siding. The finishes, the textures, all that is, we're limited. We have a budget. And right now, we're still very close to succeeding at our budget target with the flexibility in the library that we all want. So, I hear what you're saying, Val, but on the same token, if you want to criticize things, you need to be involved in the very beginning so that you're part of the discussion, right? You can't come in later and say, hey, look at that. Like I said, we had many hours of discussion about the sidewalk. A lot of us wanted a sidewalk in the back. But at the end of the day, professionals decided that it didn't really make sense to try to squeeze that in there because we don't really have room for it, and it would cost us a lot more money to get it, and the benefit would probably not be there. So it was determined that we have a sidewalk that goes around the front. We have access to the library in 3 points, the south, the east, and the west, and that we have accessibility to those parking lots through the building.
Well, I think the planning and zoning, the sidewalk issue, I think they were looking at it as you have a roadway and there's no sidewalk. So they were strictly looking at just that section, there's no sidewalk. So they wouldn't have, you know, they didn't tell them, the person who was answering the questions that night, I don't think went into depth to that degree and said, this is something that we've been dealing with, for a while.
Right.
So he didn't seem to answer the question, so it kind of left it open as to why there's not a sidewalk there, so.
Well, I think that one is fair. I mean, from a
Yeah,
site plan
I mean,
perspective, that's a fair
That's
question.
for planning and zoning to look
And
at.
I think I tried to explain to you what the thought process was. I mean, it's
But
not
it
ideal.
wasn't, it's not me, it's the
But
planning and
if
zoning.
we want to put a 4-foot sidewalk there, cars will be hopping the sidewalk to drop off books, number one. And number two, we have to take, I don't know how many square feet to fill out of the bank with a retaining wall. So the retaining wall was way more money than we wanted to expend on that non-value add feature, right? So,
And the sidewalk that was discussed was a sidewalk request from North Main Street parking lot to the Meriden Ave parking lot.
No, just between the two parking lots.
That's what I'm saying. The two
Meriden
parking
Ave
lots,
to-
from the Meriden Ave parking lot.
Right, just, I
The
think
North Main parking lot.
Okay.
Who's going to walk from the North Main parking lot to the Meriden Ave parking lot? Who's going to park in one of those two spots and walk to the other? They're going to walk to the building. And it was pointed out by the professionals that part of the reason that they didn't include the sidewalk is because if you're parked in one of those, there is a sidewalk that goes around the building
So you'd
and
have to
connects
go-
the two
you'd have to
parking
go
lots.
around the
You have to-
front.
Yeah, there's not a direct line, but also I think we have to recognize that a sidewalk between the two parking lots is probably not going to be a high traffic. Somebody's probably not going to get out of their car and walk from one parking
well, I
lot to
think
the other
for us,
parking
the
lot.
safety issue was the bigger
Well,
issue.
it
We
was
really
the
don't
sa-
want
right,
cars.
right.
And they have a sidewalk for that.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. and
Madam
Val.
Chair? Would I be able to say something? I'll keep my comments brief. So I guess my concern is with the whole design is that originally the planning committee before the building committee did a design. And that's what was educated the community and then went out to referendum. So these concerns that we're hearing now is obviously concerning because it wasn't part of the original plan that we were designing. And then as far as about being involved, we've tried to, attend the meetings. We tried being on the committee as well. So I think that's very important that, when Councilman Morelli states be involved, we've been involved. The community has been involved. Community members have come to this council meeting and spoke in opposition of this. And, I left a self-insurance committee meeting a few weeks ago, and I had a resident, say, why are we moving forward with this project? It's being done wrong. So I've been hearing it from the community. I know that everyone on this council probably has. So it's just concerning, and having this dialogue is important. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Let's move on to open space.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Two items from the Open Space Committee meeting that I wanted to point out. The first was that we had debated and drafted a town policy for open space maintenance of parcels where especially we have farm heritage activity going on, farming on open space parcels. So we passed the policy around, what's the town's responsibility for maintaining those. And then the second item, we had reviewed a request for a land swap. And we had taken action on that and decided that that was not something that the committee was supporting at the time. So other than that, not a whole lot.
Any questions for Paul? Okay, I don't hear any. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to the town manager's report and communication.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is the Board of Finance report. This was the most important meeting of the year, as you know, from the Board of Finance. This is the one where they debated and voted on the budget. I reference you to page 3, and I'll go through it for you. The first major item that they took was the $760,000 carryover funds. The Board of Education requested that the Board of Finance push those from the current carryover funds into next fiscal year's operational. That was voted on and approved. The second major thing that they did was actually vote on the budget itself. They voted 4-2 for the Board of Education budget for $110,460,653. That was approved, and of course, Mr. Larry will be here at your next meeting to present the entire budget to you. The town government budget was also approved at $49,927,618. The more, I'll call them minor budgets, the capital budgets, the animal control budget, and the sewer budgets were all approved unanimously. The other major items that took place was ARPA money. The first time this comes to you, if you recall, probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when we first started talking about ARPA money, one of the suggestions was, well, actually it was more than a suggestion, the federal government says that a section of it should go to your water producers. Southington technically does not own the water department, but at that time I spoke with the council and the Board of Finance, and they recommended that a portion do go to the water department. We talked about it, and $900,000 of the $13 million was allocated to the water department. The water department came to the Board of Finance, and they've asked for their first section of that, which is $752,290, which is being used exactly what ARPA said it had to be used for, which is to clean the water, specifically the lead in the water, and replace the lead pipes. So that's also, obviously, when you approve the minutes, that would also be approved. And then, in continuation of the stuff we've been doing for the last 3 years, you'll notice the MS4 money for ARPA. This is year 3 for the MS4, and you'll see that also on page 11. It was a very busy meeting, and the Board of Finance, I must say, worked very, very hard. I thank all 6 members. Between all their workshops and everything, the time they put in, and I know it wasn't unanimous, but the fact of the matter is that everybody worked hard, and everyone voted, in my opinion, what they felt was the best interest of the town. So I thank publicly the Board of Finance. And now, of course, starting your next meeting, the ball will be in your court. Any questions on that?
Madam Chair, can I just, Mark, on the water department, do they have a little bit left of that? Right?
Yes, they'll be coming back with another one. It's a little bit interesting how we have to do this. Even though the water department technically, the public votes for 6 members to run the water department.
Right.
But it's not technically, it's a pseudo agency of the town of Southington, but it's not under my control, it's not under your control. But how ARPA works is the town needs to stay under control of the ARPA money. So what'll happen is, we worked with Doug, who's the superintendent of water, we worked with Doug and Jim Bowes, and what'll happen is, the contract that they sign will be with them, but what'll happen is the invoices have to come to the town of Southington, and the town of Southington, through this money, has to pay the invoices. Because 10 years from now, when there's an audit, we need to make sure the town had control of the money all the time. We just can't give them $900,000. So it's a little bit different than you normally see, so that's how
Right,
that's
so
working.
will they, for the 700, are they receiving now the 752,000?
Well, technically, they don't
Well,
receive, it
gonna
stays
be
with us,
paying
but we'll be
the
paying
invoice.
bills for their contractor up to $752,000, and then probably next year or later this year, they're gonna sign another contract for the remaining amount, which we'll do the same way.
So for the remaining amount, same thing, a contract will be done.
Exactly.
Do they have to use it by a certain deadline?
Well, it has to be contracted by December of 2024, which, according to the water department, should not be a problem. And of course, with the town, it's not gonna be a problem either. All of ours is committed by this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I have a comment, then I have a question for the town manager. First is thank you to the Board of Finance, Council, and everyone involved over the last few years on the ARPA money that the town has spent in a very responsible manner, in my opinion. We are still, to this day, reading articles from other towns across the state that are having issues with ARPA money, arguments over it, and all of the above. So I commend everyone involved in the Southington process that was involved. Second is a question for the town manager. The Board of Finance minutes on page 8 reference that the revenues are approximately a little bit under $1.5 million above budget. Can you just briefly touch upon that number and what's the driver behind that?
Well, obviously, our investments are a little higher than we thought they were gonna be, because interest rates are a little better than they were. And the other 2 driving forces, although it's slowing down, is the building department and the town clerk's office.
So
Those are the 3 major factors.
similar to what we've seen.
Right, except that unlike last year, when it was those 2, now interest rates going up.
Right.
Helps us getting income, but hurts us when we go out for bonding. So it's kind of a double-edged sword on that.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else have further questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, it's like, the clerk's office fees, so it's like $800,000 difference than the prior year. Why is that?
$800.
$800,000 is the projected clerk's, fees. That doesn't conveyance tax, that's just recording fees?
Those are the recording fees, correct. And
That big was swing.
yeah, and our conveyance tax, the local conveyance tax.
Is it volume, real estate volume? Is that
We have had in the last 2 years, we've had a massive volume of real estate. Residential been carrying it, and we've had some very, very large transfers. We've had buildings sold in Southington, we've had strip malls sold in Southington, so we've been doing very, very well. And also, obviously, since the building department is doing very well, that means there's things happening. Homes are being built and additions are being put on, so we're doing very well. We have seen a little bit of a slowdown, no great shock, because when interest rates go up, people aren't gonna put the additions on, and people are gonna hold off on buying, well, not in Southington for whatever reason, people hold off on buying for a house, but still in Southington, the real estate market's very, very hot.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Second item came up, I think it was 2 meetings ago. Councilman asked us to look into a procurement committee, and I wish to thank Annette Turnquist, who's here tonight, for several reasons, but this is one of them. What we did is we looked at the procurement committee and we said, okay, what do we need to review? And the first thing was, we have plenty of boards that handle after the bid takes place. We have the sewer committee who does sewer bids. We have the public works committee who does public works bids. We have my office who reviews the bids after they're done. But the question came up, and really Annette did all the legwork on it, and thank you for that, on what exactly other towns are doing for the pre-stuff. What happens before that? So what we're recommending is, we recommend that the council obviously review this memo that we put together. I know that you just got it this week, so I don't expect a lot of questions at this moment. But what I'd ask you to do is take a look at it. These are our thoughts. We felt that this is something that could be under your policies and procedures, which means that it's a committee that lasts 2 years, council to council. If a future council would like to continue it, the future council can continue it. If the future council doesn't want to continue it, they don't have to continue it, just like all your other subcommittees. That being said, I do think it has some merit, and I do think you need to take a good look at it. And we're excited about the software part of it also, which is the second paragraph. It's a lot of legwork for Annette's office, my office. Well, I say my office, Kim does all the legwork in my office. I sign the documents, but Kim does all the work on it. And Annette's office does a lot of the legwork. So between both of those things, take a good look at it, and then obviously, if you need to email me or Annette or a combination of both of us to answer any questions, and then I'll speak with the chair on when to bring it up again for discussion.
Very good. Any questions to the town manager on that? Okay, hearing none, let's move on.
The next item, Mr. Del Santo already brought up, but let me discuss it. This is the recommendation for the on-call construction crew. We do these every year, but in this particular case, we are recommending to approve the following: Valentine Construction, JV3 Construction, Martin Lavero Construction, and River Valley, as set forth in the memo from the Public Works Director to myself. Answer any questions that you have, or Annette will answer any questions that you have. Okay?
Anyone have any questions? Okay.
I did
Okay,
have
go
a
ahead.
question.
There you go.
Sorry for the delay there.
I
On
wouldn't
this.
want Annette to come for no reason.
Right. The sidewalk bid, well, first, it was interesting to see that there was
I
one
didn't get there yet, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go to, I'll address that question when we get there.
Any questions on the on-call?
No.
All right. Sidewalk. What we're recommending to you, it's been through the Public Works Committee, is that we recommend the following: Valentine Construction Company for sidewalk paver repair, and William W. Landon Construction, and review as set forth by a memo from the Public Works Director to myself and Mr. O'Malley.
Thank you. No, yes, thank you. The third, on the bid results, it seemed odd that one of the bidders was way higher than all the rest, so I found that interesting. And secondly, what was the length of sidewalk that is being addressed in this bid?
It's the exact reason why our Public Works Director is here.
I don't recall the length that we gave them for them to come up with these prices.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neither here nor there because they're all bidding on the same length. But the length is kind of arbitrary because it's just an on-call bid. So it's basically a unit price essentially. And it'll be for whatever square footage that we need, whether it's replacing a school access walk or some other walk we have to do in town. It's basically just an on-call contractor for whatever sidewalks we need to replace in town.
Thank you. Annette. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, we also have executive session tonight. In executive session, we'll be discussing real estate in the northwest quadrant of Southington. In executive session will be the town attorney, myself, Mr. Perillo, and a town resident.
Very good.
There will be no action taken outside of executive.
No action. Very good. Thank you so much. Let's move on. Town attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the council is aware, I submitted a revised legal opinion with regard to the proposed change in regulations, in particular the handicap parking area and the police department's authority to issue citations that will stay within this town. I did provide the public with a brief overview prior to today's public hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council members have. Otherwise, I have nothing more to provide.
Okay. Are there any questions for the town attorney concerning this matter? Okay, hearing none, let's move on. Let's open up to public communications. Please give your name and address, and we're here to listen for 5 minutes.
Good evening. George Poharlak, 1297 East Street, and I won't take my 5 minutes. It'll be brief. As you know or may not know, January 22nd was the 54th anniversary of the end of bus service in the town of Southington, and we're pleased to hear that the state of Connecticut is going to fund Phase 1 of the 2018 study that was done. Certainly, Phase 1 is the beginning of the restoration of service to the town of Southington. It's a major achievement, and it is in the budget. It's part of a bigger package, and I'm sure that will pass. And I urge you to do whatever you can to start planning for that new route. And it looks like there's only the possibility for maybe 2 or 3 bus stops. Two of them seem to be fairly obvious, but you need to be starting to think about that now so that when they say go, the bus stops will be there and ready to be used. Certainly, one of the key things about Phase 1, it covers 7% of the town of population, of Southington's population, which is not a lot, but it opens up paratransit service for those 7% of the people. And I urge you to start thinking about advertising that eventuality to those people in the town of Southington who would be eligible in that area for paratransit services. And I finally urge you to advocate for the implementation of Phase 2. Phase 2 brings bus service, as you well are aware, through town into, through over to Plantsville and over to the express bus line and then back up West Street. And that is the ultimate goal, that we should be all working for, and hopefully you could advocate for that maybe in the next governor's budget. And finally, one last note, we've become aware that the Greater Hartford Transit District has put in a microtransit proposal for a grant that would cover microtransit services for Bristol, Plainville, and Southington. So we don't know whether they're going to get that grant or not. Microtransit is not the solution to the town's problems for transportation, but it is a little piece, a little additional service that would help the town of residents of Southington. So thank you for your support. And like I say, Phase 1 is a major accomplishment, but it only covers 7% of the population of the town of Southington. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, George.
Nancy Chiro, 330 Annalise Avenue, Southington. I don't have much else to say other than that I'm very excited that Phase 1 has been approved in the governor's budget. Well, it's unlikely that it won't go through. It's almost there. I missed what you may have said, Val. I don't know if you went through the route, what Phase 1 is. They know, everybody knows Phase 1?
I think they do, yes.
Okay. Other than, it's nice to know that paratransit will help a small amount of people in Southington in terms of our elderly and our handicapped people, our disabled residents. But it's also, people could, if someone can get to the bus stop, wherever that may be, somewhere on that end of town, the south end of town, they can then go to Tunxus Community College because the bus will take them to Bristol. Bristol will get them on a bus to Tunxus. That's one of the goals of the state. Also, the People can get from Southington to Plainville to Coles Plaza. They can go to Big Y and work. They can go from there to the West Farms Mall. So there is some access then for us to get, people to get out of Southington and get to other areas of that end of the state, which is great. I am excited about the Greater Hartford's Transit District proposal that George just talked about. If they bring microtransit to Southington, that would be another addition, that maybe a microtransit bus could take people to that bus stop for Phase 1, so that might be a possibility. So there's more, like I said, there's more than just paratransit. There's other opportunities for people in Southington to get somewhere that end of the state at least, and I'm excited about that. But I want you to continue to support us. Our committee is still working. I want to pass out some comments regarding bus service. We survey people, not myself, but everyone on our bus transportation committee surveys their constituents, and these are some of the, there's 3-4 pages here of public comments regarding bus service. Some people said, I would never use a bus, and others have said, I'm blind and I need a bus, I need this. So read, I'm passing this out. You can, so these are some of the comments that have come from our committee. Just help us keep going. That's all. I thank you for your support. Secondly, I want to invite all of you. Oh, Annette left. Oh, I wanted to thank her publicly for, again, helping push through our pickleball courts. We have a tournament on June 3rd at Panthorn Park, so if anyone has time that day to stop by Panthorn and see a tournament that will involve people from Cheshire, Meriden, Wallingford, they're coming into town. Lions Club is June 3rd, Saturday morning, I believe it is, and I think that's a Saturday, and it's at Panthorn. So it's pretty cool to watch, you know, you'll see our tournament in our own town, and maybe we can get some other parks, some pickleball courts at some other parks at some point. All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public communication aspect of our agenda. And let's move on to old business. Item A, action on addition of a handicap parking ordinance.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say, it sounds like this has been in the works, well, at least for a little while. But I do think this is something excellent that, you know, we're doing, that we just haven't had in town, so.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? This is important.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Triano.
Yes,
And as always, Madam Chair, it goes into effect 20 days after publication.
there you go, 20 days after publication. Item B, action on the report of the Board of Finance.
So moved, Madam Chair?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and Tom seconded. Please call the roll, Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Congratulations, guys.
Can we switch seats
Just
now?
raise your hand up. That's all right, Kathy.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Triano.
Yes. Item C, action on the bid recommendation for the on-call construction crew.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Discussion.
Oh, I'm
Dis-
sorry,
discussion.
discussion. I was ready to jump. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead. Jack.
So after reviewing these bids, they're literally all over the place. I don't know if everybody looked at them, but like even the trucking, I get it, it's, you know, I guess there's X amount of catch basins that we need to get done before July 1st when the paving happens. But again, this is one of the reasons that I hope that, you know, everybody could look at the procurement committee and realize that this is something the procurement committee could help work on our bid documents so that, again, we're not approving every bidder. Right now, there's 4 bidders. There's no, and we're going to approve all 4 bidders. There's no encouragement to bid low. You could bid high, and we're going to hire you. I've never seen other towns put things out to bid the fashion that we do. Usually, there's a scope of work. If it needs to be 500 catch basins, if your company isn't big enough to handle the work, then you don't bid it. I don't see any performance bonds, bid bonds. these are all reasons that, again, a procurement committee could look at what other towns are doing. And again, if you bid it and you can't do the work, there's a performance bond behind it. So right now, we are literally approving all the vendors, the high and the low, and we don't know what's going to cost the town. And I don't know how anyone else feels on that, but I don't feel comfortable because we don't know what we're going to spend. There's not a packet where there's a firm dollar amount, and I'm going to, I guess, maybe ask our corporate counsel or our town attorney, is this even a fair bid practice right here? Because we are approving every bid, and the scope isn't really detailed in there. So I don't know how this is a competitive bid process when it's not competitive. We are going with the high and the low bidder. And there's no encouragement to be low and give a competitive bid. So I don't know if this falls as a competitive bidding process because we are approving all the bidders. The bid documents are too vague, in my opinion, of the scope of the work. And this is, again, a reason that I feel that, we need a procurement committee to be looking at these bids and making sure that we know what the whole scope of the project is. Because, again, you could bid real low on one item, real high on the next. Well, the low item may only have one unit, where the high item may have 1,000 units. So I just don't know how Public Works is going to address this when they're picking out the contractors to do what jobs, when, based on the Public Works meeting, they're all going to be hired because we need X amount of catch basins to be done. And it's not to my understanding that there's a contractor that can't do all this work either. So I don't know if we can maybe, I get that this project's got to move forward, but I'm concerned that, again, the competitive bid process isn't being followed here. And here we are spending a sizable dollar amount, and it's kind of all over the place.
Anyone else? Okay.
Well, can I ask, I guess, Mark, because Annette left.
These are very similar to the snow bids. And I know what Jack is talking about, but in the snow bids the same way. Is the fact of the matter is, depending on the size of the storm, depending on what the job is for sidewalks or whatever the case may be, the Public Works it's actually Gabe and Annette. And Gabe and Annette look at each one of them. They're all licensed to work for the town of Stonington, but they pick and choose depending on who the lowest is in that category, and they go from low to high. I do remember years ago, we talked about the fact that it was actually a policy of the town that when in big projects, we wanted to break them up so that the local people would get it, instead of just the big guys. So it's all the way you want to think about it. But in this particular case, I know that Annette and Gabe are very good when the project goes through. They start with the low people, but if they do need everybody, just like a snow, you can get a snow one, you've seen them all. If we need all hands on deck, that means the person plowing out there, person X is getting more than person Y, but in a smaller storm, person X gets called and person Y doesn't. So it's very similar.
And these are on-call bids too, right? So it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be deployed at once if they're not needed. So I think maybe I would propose that, if the folks who came up with the motion in the second, it's stated in the packet, actually, and when I had looked at this, on-call means on-call. You're not guaranteed a certain volume of work. You're there if we need you, and if there's overflow where we have to go to bidder number 2, we have the ability to do it without putting it back out to bid. So
If one's not available.
so my recommendation is, because some of the bidders do have higher costs and components, but my recommendation would be to modify the motion to what's said in the packet, and that is that we always use the lowest total cost bidder for a job.
Well, that's why you can reference the memo.
Exactly.
itself.
So in other words,
I'll modify my motion to reference
Yeah,
the memo
because-
set forth by the,
you should use the lowest cost bidder, and if for some reason we need a second one, it's the next lowest cost bidder.
it's best practice, that's the way we do it anyway, right?
I understand, but when I do the motions normally, I do like to reference the memo, and so.
Right. I'll modify my motion
To,
to add the memo.
To reference the
so your motion is to reference the memo, the language in the memo.
It's usually
Okay.
the motion to approve as presented by the memo from the Public Works Director to me.
Yeah. That's the way I amend my motion. Okay.
And who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I think it was Jim, right?
Jim, so you're okay to amend?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yeah?
I guess, so, Mark, I guess when you mention other towns, other towns, they have a project. This is a project. We're redoing catch basins prior to paving. we have a paving project, we have catch basins to redo. In my opinion, that is not on-call work. We know what's going to happen. On-call is more of, hey, I have a leaky faucet, like what the water department did today. They went out to a water main break. That is on-call. This is a projected project. And again, I strongly feel that even the snow bids, like, I get each storm is different, but there's no scope of what the equipment is. You could have a 1970 payloader or a 2022 payloader. That's like comparing a 1970s pickup truck and a today's pickup truck. What they offer, and what they're able to do are way different. So again, I have a hard time. This is my background. This is what I know. I did not bid it. And I've seen other towns' bids, and this is not common practice to pick and choose vendors. That is what is happening here. And this is not a competitive bid process at that point in time. We should have a scope of the project, what the details are, and then go from there. Just like the sidewalks. If it's X amount of sidewalks, this is what it's going to be. Because again, if you're bidding this and it's pick and choose, how are you going to be the low bid? It's impossible. And these bid documents, again, I'm going to err on the side, and I'm going to be voting against this because I don't think this is a competitive bid process, because the scope of the work is a project and it's not on-call work. This is a project that we are doing. So I have a lot of concerns that I mentioned it with the trash bid. I tried tabling that, and that went nowhere. I didn't bid it, but there was over $100,000 over the course of that contract that we could have trimmed. Now we have the snow bids. I mentioned my concerns then, and here we are with the next bid project. So again, at the end of the year, this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I get that we have our department heads to pick and choose, I guess, but that's not the proper practice in other towns. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Okay.
just for clarification, just because the councilman made a comment, I want to make sure it's clear. When with the snow bids, there are, I don't know if it really matters whether it's a 2022 truck or a 1998 truck, as long as it's stated what it is and what it can do. The snow bids that do go out do ask for equipment. So there is an equipment requirement that's in there. There's a very detailed equipment requirement in snow bids on the size of the equipment, the size of the plow, the size of the thing. So those are all detailed in the snow bids. And for reference, because those who are watching at home can't see this, this is a detailed bid that does detail each and every component of the construction costs, because it was stated that this wasn't necessarily done by a per project basis. These are construction project costs. So we have, for example, catch basin sizes, different catch basin depths, the reset the catch basin, manholes, digging the manholes, setting pipes, pipe sizes, pipe materials, from high-density polyethylene to copper pipes. We have bituminous driveway, we have patches, we have saw cut pavements, so they actually cut. So each and every single line item, our town staff can break this up to ensure that we're getting the lowest cost. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100% optimized, because, maybe, looking at it and doing it a little bit differently could optimize it. But I want to make sure it's clear that this is very detailed bidding package. This is not just an overall on-call as was portrayed. There's a lot of details in here about what the services are and the components that are being bid.
So with that being said, there's not a quantity requested. This is an à la carte bid. So it's asking, like you stated, a 36
Correct.
RC pipe.
Correct.
It's not saying how many linear feet are needed. So it's à la carte. Again, that would comply with on-call, because in case it's on-call. When you're doing a project, it's like our library. We know how many square footage we're trying to do. That's like putting the library bid out and saying, hey, how much you charge for a vanity, a door? That's à la carte. A bid package usually says, hey, you need a 30 by 36 door, there's 28 of them, there's quantities. And then you could compile them, because there's some bidders that may be able to do the 12-inch RC pipe cheaper than the 36, but if the quantities don't make sense, then you're approving all the contractors, and you have huge dollar swings here. So we have some contractors that are using triaxle dump trucks at, 95 an hour all the way to 185 an hour. That's almost double.
It
So-
also gives us the opportunity to choose the lower one.
But if
for
they're
taxes.
working on, I guess, a project within the on-call work, at that point in time, you're already now paying the 100. That's where a detailed bid spec would say, hey, X amount of hours of trucking for this job, or hey, we approve this contractor to do all the trucking. I've never seen another municipality put bids out like this. And then you mentioned the snow equipment. I grew up in the landscape and construction business. I plowed snow. I could put a 3-yard bucket on a 1-yard machine. And the bid specs say a 3-yard bucket. So if I put a 1-yard machine, and I oversize the bucket, the performance isn't going to be there. So again, most bids state what the horsepower is going to be, what the performance is going to be. Look at other municipalities and how they're doing it. And again, I'm speaking out of experience here. And I'm asking you guys to just look into this and try to help make this better, because I'm telling you guys, based on my experience, this is not common.
I only commented, Jack, because you misrepresented what was here, and you said that it wasn't a complete package. And I want to make sure it's clear, there is a complete package. It's just not done the way that you would want to see it. And that's fair. It may be done differently in the future, and maybe there's a better way to skin the cat. I just want to be clear that, because there's people watching this, they don't have the same documents that you do. When the snow bids go out, there is a spec that is put out there. Equipment is requested, specific equipment, specific sizes, and not to say that another municipality doesn't do it differently. Maybe there's opportunities for us to learn. But to state that we don't put those type of things out there, what you said was that we don't put those specs out there, we do. Or should I say town staff does, not we. So I just want to make sure it was clear to everybody. It doesn't mean it's optimal. It could be optimal, but I want to make sure that we're not stating something that's inaccurate. That's all
Okay,
I'm
I'm going to just,
yeah.
I'm going to close discussion now
Kindly
because we're
disagree.
kind of going around and around the same thing.
Just one thing, Madam Chair, and I ask this as a favor for all of you. I did invite my town public works director here to answer any of those questions, so please, if in the future, obviously, during my report, if you had questions, please, if you couldn't do it then I would have had her stay, but it's unfair to her. Once my report was over, I figured that was, and she left.
And
She would have liked to have been here if I knew that,
So,
so.
Mark, I didn't realize she was leaving.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
and again, on previous meetings, we've asked to wait until we do the vote in the discussion. So therefore, that's why I was holding back
Okay.
and allowing you to do your
Well,
presentation.
that's why I let the
For everybody,
discussion go
the
on
reason I- yeah, the
for a
reason I
little
have
while,
staff
but
in here,
we're starting to get circular.
Got it.
So there is a motion and a second on the floor, and I trust that everyone will vote what they believe. And so, Madam Clerk, I think we should call the roll on this one.
Dietrich,
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yes.
Morelli.
Yes.
Perry.
No.
Chaplinsky.
Yes.
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo.
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Okay, very good. All right.
Sidewalk.
We are at
D.
D, right, I'm sorry. I got a little waylaid here. Item D, action, bid on the on-call sidewalk installation repair. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve, Madam
Have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Chair.
That's
As
step
set forth by the information provided earlier.
Right. As set forth. Yes,
Madam Chair?
discussion, yes, go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To continue this discussion that was just brought up on the previous bid, I would ask that this memo in front of us tonight actually add information. Reason being is because there's dollar amounts on the actual bid results, and there's no reference to the square footage. The Director of Public Works did mention that the bid included the square footage, and obviously it was all consistent across all bids, but I think that the actual square footage that was bid should be in this memo, because somebody who looks at these results, I think, would be quite confused.
Go ahead to the memo.
Okay, will it be referenced in the motion?
Reference in the motion, that you want it added to the memo, we'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
Are we still free to move forward on this then?
Yes, you are.
So, okay, we had testimony, Madam Chair, from the
Yes.
Public Works Director that the square footage is equal across all of them, correct?
Right.
Is it safe to assume that that's an accurate statement?
Yes.
to the town manager?
That's correct, but Tom is right. The number should have been stated in the memo. It's not. We'll correct it in the memo.
I'm just asking because if we're not
Everyone-
sure, then
no,
maybe we
everyone-
should table it.
It was very clear. Everyone bid on the same stuff.
Right, that was clear. Thank you, Madam
Very
Chair.
good. So any other discussion?
So, Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
come on, Jack.
so Councilman Chaplinsky, if you look at this bid, you see how there's Prindle Hill Construction, their total sum comes to about 170,000. Same thing with Valentine Construction. Then you look at the third bidder, Prime Electric, they're almost 700,000. So imagine if they did a bid like the other one, à la carte, I'll call it, and we approved all of them. We'd be approving a bidder that their project would be 700,000. So this is the type of bid setup that I would like to see going forward, where we have an actual dollar amount of the project going forward.
Yeah. And just for the record again, that bid is excluded in the motion in the second. So that high bid that you're talking about
Right.
is not included in all four of them. We're only choosing one for each of the jobs. And the high bidder that you're talking about, have you ever bid a job where you said, because I know you do this all the time, have you ever bid a job where you said, hey, I'm going to bid this one and I'm going to make money on it? And if I'm making a lot of money on it, then I'll take it. But guess what? If I don't, sometimes that happens too, Jack. You get a person who says, hey, this one's not worth it for me unless I get a ridiculous amount. And we don't know if that's the case here. I mean, sometimes that happens.
Well, and that's where, again, if we refine the bid documents and we really figure out what the project's going to entail, then we could come up with a dollar amount of what it's going to be. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Then, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Dedzek,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Triano.
Yes. Very good. Item 9, new business tax refunds.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packets.
I'll second.
Very good. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Let's call the roll on this one.
Dedzek,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Abstain.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Triano.
Yes. Appointments, Board of Ethics, 1 member, 3-year term expiring 2023, August of 2023.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Tony D'Angelo to the Board of Ethics.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yep. No discussion.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Dedzek,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Triano.
Yes. Commission for Persons with Disabilities. After speaking with the chair, by the way, they've done a great job. I want to just commend the Commission with Disabilities right now. From where we were at the beginning of this term to where we are now is wonderful. I'm going to read the names of the individuals. My understanding is all would like to be reappointed. And let me just read the names. I hope I get them all right. Patricia Tavalazzi, Gail Lassard, Melissa Halgren, Todd Ritchie, Ruth Stanley Sear, Mary Barbagallo, Karen Kavanaugh, Kristen Curley, and Jessica Rydell. Those are the names that are looking to be reappointed. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone being reappointed. Conservation Commission, 2 members for a 4-year term.
Madam Chair, I've been given the following 2 names, Bethany Solari and Val Garina.
Very good.
They're hereby appointed to April of 2027.
Very good. Congratulations. I know Val's here. Congratulations. So, very good.
Madam Chair, we do need to go into
Executive
executive
session.
session
Motion
for
to
real estate.
move to executive
To
session.
include Mr. Perillo, to include the town attorney, myself, and Lou, is there a resident too? And your last name, sir? Mr. Curtis.
Yep. And is the clerk around?
He will not be able to make it tonight,
Oh,
but the
well,
town attorney's
of course,
prepared to talk on it.
understood.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
approve as presented by the town manager.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll be staying in this room, so
Yes, so thank you,
you
everybody.
need to pack your stuff up.